All right, we are going to convert a string into an integer. So what we're going to do is basically the input is going to be some sort of string like 1, 2, 4, 8, and the output would be 1, 2, 4, 8 as an integer. So to do this, we can jump right in, public. It's going to return an int, call it a to I, and it's going to take a string. All right, and we're going to want to store the result. And we will also, let's go ahead and initialize this to 0. We will also want to check and make sure it is not negative. Or if it is negative, deal with it accordingly. We'll set that to false to start, assuming it's going to not be negative. And then we will loop through the string. And as we loop through, we will check it for first if it's negative, because we want to keep track of that first. It would be the first element or the first character. So if str at I equals a negative sign, then we want to set is decimal to true, not is decimal, sorry, is negative to true. And then we're going to want to, we'll do an else because we don't want to accidentally perform any operations on that minus sign. And then otherwise we go in and result equals result times 10 so that we can get to the proper position of the number, whether it's in the ones, the tens, the hundreds, or the thousands place, and so on. So result times 10, and then we add the string at I minus 0 to convert it into an int. Okay, and then that is the end of the for loop, and then we just return. If it's negative, we'll just check for that. Then we return a negative result. Otherwise, we'll just return result. Okay, let's see how it goes. All right, so let's say our input is 1, 2, 4, 8. We need to keep track of result. And we can keep track of, well, we'll just know it's negative. Okay, so we've got result and we've got I. Okay, so I is 0. If string at I, so when I is 0, string at I is 1. So that does not equal the negative sign. So we go there else, result equals result times 10, and result started at 0. So it would be 0 times 10 plus 1 minus, oh, so that basically leave us with 1. And then I plus plus. And our string length is 4. 1 is less than 4. We go down in here. It's not a negative sign. So result equals, so 1 times 10 is 10 plus 2. So our result turns to 12. I plus plus, 2 is less than 4. So, and it's not a negative sign there. So result equals result times 10. So 12 times 10 is 120 plus 4. We get 124. I plus plus, 3 is less than 4. So we go in and still not a negative sign. So result equals result times 10. So 124 times 10 is 1,240 plus 8. So we get 1,248. And then I plus plus 4. 4 is not less than 4. So we get out of our for loop. And so we return is negative. Is negative is still false. So we're going to return positive 1248. Okay. And let's go ahead and do if we realized, oh, we actually wanted to return something with a decimal, or we wanted to deal with a decimal point in the number, we can modify our code. We can add in a couple of things. So let's go ahead and add in, we'll have to kind of make this a little smaller. But we can add in, we had our result, but like we would want to change. Result would obviously then be a float. And we would be returning a float. We would also need some sort of interim number where we can store the decimal side of things. We can store the result in one, store the decimal in another, and then add them together at the end. And then we would need our is negative, of course. And we would want to know if it is a decimal. Let's start that at false. And I think lastly, we'll want a counter so that we know how many places into the decimal we go, so that when we convert it into a decimal, we know how much to divide it by. So we'll start that at 0. Okay, so we start out totally normal. We can first test for the negative. And then what we want to do is add a few things in. So what we can do is test to see if it's a decimal. So if we don't do that, we can say if is equal to a decimal point or a period, then is decimal is true. Okay, and then we're gonna move that down. So now we know that is decimal is true. So now if it is a decimal, so if is decimal, and we don't want to operate on that period, so we want to make sure we're skipping that. Then we're going to store our decimal result in this other variable f result, and that's going to be otherwise calculated pretty much the same way, just to get started, and then at the end we'll divide it so that we can get the proper decimal. Okay, and we will also increase our D count to keep track of that. All right, and then the other thing we want to do then is if it's not a decimal, then we're wanting to do our regular result equals result times 10 plus string at I minus 0. And then we'll get out of our for loop. Then we know if it's a decimal, then we want to have result equal result plus and this is where keeping that D count is going to help, because we need to know the power, like 10 to which power that we want to divide by. So this will keep track for us. So if there were like 3 numbers after the decimal point, then we would know it would be 10 to the power of 3, which is 1,000. So that would give us the correct amount that we want. All right, so then we're going to return at the very end. The same thing, if it's negative, then we want a negative result. Otherwise, we'll do a positive result. And that is the entire algorithm. So let's go through an example with a decimal point and make sure that that works. So let's go ahead and say 123.567. Okay, so result starts at 0. We should also keep track of F result, and is negative, is decimal, and D count. Okay, so I think that's all the variables we need to keep track of. And so result starts at 0, I starts at 0, F result 0, is negative is false, is decimal is false, and D count starts at 0. Okay, so, and string length is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. All right, so i's at 0, that's less than 7. We go in if string at I equals negative, which it does not. So we go in, and then otherwise string at I, if it string at I equals a period, which it does not. So if is decimal, that's going to fail. So if is not decimal, which is the case, result equals result times 10 plus string at I minus O. So right now result is 1. Loop around I plus plus. Now we are at 1. 1 is still less than 7. We go in. The first one fails. The second one fails. Third if statement fails. And then we have if it's not a decimal, which is the case, then we want to add it to result. So result is 1. 1 times 10 is 10 plus string at I minus 0. So we've got 2. So we get 12. All right, I plus plus. And we go around again. 2 is less than 7. We go in and everything's going to fail until we get to the not decimal. And result times 10. So 12 times 10 is 120 plus 3 is 123. I plus plus. 3 is less than 7. Now we go in, and if string at I equals a period, which it does, then is decimal becomes true. And so if is decimal and string at I does not equal a period, that's not the case. So we skip that. If is not decimal, that's not the case. We skip that. So we go around again. And I plus plus, I is 4. So 4 is less than 7. We go in. And is decimal and string at I does not equal a period, and that's a 4. So this does count. So result, F result equals F result times 10, which is 0 at this point, plus string at I minus 0. So we get 5. So F result is now 5. We go in, it's not a decimal, or it is a decimal, so this condition fails, and then I++, I is now 5, 5 is less than 7, we go in, we're still with is decimal is true, and 6 is our string at I, and that is not a period, so we go in, F result equals F result times 10, so that's 5 times 10 is 50, plus string at I minus 0 is 56. All right, so we get 56 for that, and then I++. 6 is less than 7, we go down, and we're going to still hit this if statement because we are still is decimal and string at I does not equal a period. So F result equals F result times 10, so 56 times 10 is 560 plus string of I minus 0, so plus 7, we get 5, 6, 7. We don't meet the other condition, so we go I++, I is 7, 7 is not less than 7, so we're out of our for loop. And then we go to this if statement, if is decimal, and is decimal is true. So we go ahead and we do this. So result equals result plus, and result is 1, 2, 3, plus F result is 5, 6, 7, divided by, and that should be math pow. Sorry about that. That helps a little bit. Math.pow of 10 and decount. Decount. Oh, I completely forgot to update decount as I was doing F results. So we have 1, 2, 3. So decount would be 3. We definitely have the code there. So it would be 10 to the third power, which is 1,000. So 123.567. And that is exactly what we wanted. So that is how you can modify it to accommodate a decimal. Otherwise, there's pretty simple code to just get an integer, whether it's negative or positive. And the running time of this is O of n, just depending on how large the string is. And it doesn't take up any extra data structures